Oh, everybody, it is time. So as you can tell from the title of the video, from the thumbnail, me and Rex are here, Rex Shady Nero here, and we're gonna be ranking the OpTic ranks. Obviously, if you guys haven't seen the video, which I'm sure most of you have at this point, OpTic Chicago ranked a certain amount of players from the Call of Duty League in tier rankings, and we're gonna tell you what they actually were trying to say and go through where these guys realistically should be ranked, because we all know, you know, they're hiding a few things in their own ranks. So without further ado, I'm excited to get into it. Rex, how you feeling?
I'm pumped, dude. I am feeling like a chinchilla jumping off a tree and ready to soar, baby.
Absolutely. So again, if you guys didn't see the video, I can show you guys what their tier list ended up being. So this is what their rankings were. Basically, we're just looking at it here. There was a big issue with how they were ranking their players overall. And so the question mark was, what were they even basing their rankings off of? And so first of all, we got to decide what they were basing their rankings off of, how we're going to base our rankings, and go from there. They had a pretty big debate between like, how do they rank current players versus like past pros for retired players. As you guys can see, like BigTymer was in that list, Karma was in that list, Rambo, Killa, and a few other guys. And then a debate on how they actually even rank the players that were currently, or the current players that were in that list as well, whether they're basing them straight off of just tier ranking the players that are actually on that list and kind of like using those players as the scale, where the worst player would go at the bottom, the best player would go at the top, and you scale from there. Or if it was going to be between ranking all players and where they would fit in a tier list of all current Call of Duty players. So what me and Rex decided to do, kind of take a mix of those things. We're going to rank the retired pros on their own list, and then we're going to rank the current pros for the most part based off of where they would be in a full-on tier list of players with this amount of tiers. So I mean, it should be a fun one. We're going to go through kind of like some of the OpTic players' actual thoughts, like what you can kind of interpret from the video and where they took those things and some notes on those guys. I think we can get right into it. So with that said, let's start with Lamar, accuracy, and see where we can go there. So Rex, take us away. What are your thoughts on Lamar accuracy? And I guess we can say that they put Lamar in the B tier alongside Apathy, Methods, and Zuma.
Right.
Thoughts?
So the big question with this one that I had watching the video is that they all think Lamar's this great guy, S tier guy, and then they start saying he's probably a B tier type of player. But I was sensing the vibe, and I may be wrong about this, but I was sensing the vibe that they were thinking he may be even a little worse than the B tier and maybe thinking the C tier with him. We
all know that Lamar has a lot to say. And so if they were going to put him lower than that, I think they were a little bit worried about what the backfire could be. I have him in the C tier.
Oh, so I would too. I don't think he's, I agree with what the poll said. I think he's probably one of the lower level ARs that we have in the league.
Yeah.
And so I can concur with the C tier. And I think that is possibly where they were thinking as well, but since he's like a friend and he was one of the first ones I think they were sort of voting on, and they put him in B, I can agree with C for him, honestly.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I mean, like it was a tough battle for me about where these certain guys. I think the list overall will make a little bit more sense as we get through a little bit more. But okay, so let's move on to Attach, a former teammate of Accuracy's as well. They put him in the A tier along Clayster, Crim, and Octane. Thoughts on Attach?
So I think with Attach, yes, he's been really good. I think he's sort of like hit a static point in his career, and there has been, I guess, a little bit of sense of a growth recently. Yeah. Putting him in A tier seems, I could put him at B+. And I feel comfortable with that. Okay. Putting him at an A tier, we'll end up seeing who else is alongside him, but I feel like it's going to be like, he might be the lower end of the A tiers, in my opinion. What are you thinking with
that's
him?
Kind of, right. That was what was tough for me, was that, like, again, so normally when I do my own tier rankings, I have 6 tiers, and he's kind of been hovering in, like, the second and third tiers, right around there. And which would fit in here. So in my hand, he's either like a low A or a high B. I mean, again, I do agree. Like, he is a very consistent player. We've seen that through the years. And I agree. He's like a B+, A- type player. I would give him the benefit of the doubt and put him at the back end of the A tier. And probably that's where I would slot him in.
Okay, we'll see if we keep him there. But I feel like there's so many other subs out there in the pro league now that like there's gonna be so like they're just in another. They're not S tier, but they're also not B tier. But he doesn't compare with them, you know. So yeah, it's gonna be that weird transition.
Well, I guess if mathematically, if there's 48 COD pros this year and there's 5 tiers, you're looking at like 9 or 10 pros per tier. Maybe 9 for S, 9 for D, and then you have 10 in A, B, and C. So if you think he's a top, 19 player in the league, he would go in A. If he's not top 19, he goes B. So he's really close on the fringe there. I think in my top 20 list, I think I had him at 20. So maybe I should put him at the top of the B tier.
I feel like for right now, I feel like we should go B tier, and then maybe when we go back over to see where we want, maybe we move him up. But I think I feel comfortable with B for him, honestly.
Well, he's the nicest dude, and like he's friends with all those guys there. So like when they put him in the A tier, he got like the friend bump.
That was the thing with it, is like I think Formal was the most honest about it. But there are also times like Formal with accuracy, you could tell that he was kind of giving some gimme points, and there is that friendship league that is happening and is a real thing. So yeah, I'm comfortable with the B if we go for that for now.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm right on the fringe. He's a really, really good player, and like he can like legitimately help a lot of teams win games. So
for sure,
I could see him again if the SMG role really works out for him this year on Rokkr, and like as a slaying SMG, he can really rise up the ranks. He could easily be top 15 by the end of the year, but it just things got to go his way. So with that said, I think we can move on to the next one here. Obviously, not only 2 guys on our list so far. We got accuracy and attach. Let's go with Apathy up next on the list. So again, they put him in the B tier alongside Lamar, alongside Methods, and alongside Zuma. Thoughts on Apathy?
So here's the thing. I think Apathy is a better player than accuracy.
Yeah.
And recently, in Modern Warfare at least, he obviously was like on the worst team. And he wasn't giving us a show like we know that the Donk can do. Because Apathy, even in Black Ops 3, Apathy was just insane. Like,
yeah,
he has been so good in the past, like A level, even S level, I feel like at times. But then recently, he hasn't been quite hitting that mark. I would like to put him in I'll go with B tier. I'm comfortable putting him next to Attach in that way. They seem similar to me like that.
For me, I was just like staring down the list, and I'm like, man, he's right there between B and C. I really like Apathy. He's one of the nicest pros out there, and I think in my head, he would go in the C tier with accuracy right now. Again, we're basing this solely off of like what we expect these guys to play like in Black Ops Cold War moving forward. Obviously, in the past, and this was an issue that I think a lot of like the guys had in their rankings video, in the OpTic ranking video, was kind of giving them the accolades of what they had and then giving them that boost. I mean, I've done that in points, and it allows players to have a benefit of the doubt type thing situation where like, all right, well, we know the upside that Apathy has, but is he going to hit that upside, at this point in his career? I lean top of the C tier.
And if we're going currently right now, I can agree with that.
Okay.
But man, his past he was so good.
Oh, I know.
And he has the potential
and
to
I would
really
love
break
nothing
out in Cold
more
War.
than to see him get to that point again. So that's my thing. So let's go to a spicy one here. Let's go with Crim. Crim up next. So in OpTic's tier list, Crim was in the A tier. As you guys can see here, I can switch it real quick. They were in the A. This was OpTic's tier list in the A tier. He was with Attach, Clay, and Octane. So where are we thinking for this? This is where we're currently at right now with our list. Where do you currently have him?
The thing with Crim is that, I mean, if we're looking at currently, we'll put him in A tier, but his teammates are S tier. So how much is his tier being elevated because the rest of his team is, quote unquote, in a way carrying him? And that's kind of been the big debate with Clay and Black Ops 4 and last year's, and I think it's the same thing with Crimsix last year. How much is Zio really, elevating these other guys' level of play?
For sure.
But his accolades, like he's been a consistent winner over and over and over again. I'll put him A tier.
Okay.
But there are some players that you just be like, they're just a better individually skilled player than he is.
Right, that's my biggest thing. I think we can probably talk about it more when we have more guys in the list. But my initial instinct is actually putting him inside the B tier with with Attach. Because I think Attach is such a valuable player to a team, and he's a really, really good player. And if we have Attach in the B tier, I think that's where Crim would slide in as well.
I could do that too, but I think Crim, he's ahead of Attach. I think I would prefer that leadership of Crim if we're even counting these intangibles and everything.
Yeah, it does come into play. I'm okay with either. I prefer a B tier here, I think.
I'm okay with a B tier because he is a lower A on my list, and I could see his skill level individually as a B.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, at the end, we can talk about where we differed there. So if you just want to, keep that down as Crim inside A for you, I totally get that. So let's move on to another guy. Let's go to Arcitys here and talk about where Arcitys goes. I think this is pretty obvious, at least, and they thought it was too.
Yeah.
S tier, and I feel like that's about where he deserves.
Yeah, S tier, probably a top 2 AR, if not the best AR in the league right now.
In S tier, OpTic had him and Scump as the current players there, with BigTymer and Karma both up there as well. And I mean, Arcitys is, at least in my head, the best player on this list, pretty far and away right now, at least inside the game itself. So, okay, I'm down for that. Pretty straightforward. I mean, he brings so much to the team. He's so valuable, and he snipes. He plays, extremely well in all 3 game modes. What a beast. And definitely the S tier player on this list for sure. So let's go on to Methods and talk about some Methods action here. Thoughts on him as a player?
Methods, I'll go with C tier. Honestly, him and Accuracy sit on the same level with me almost in regard. In their level. C tier just seems right. Are we ever gonna put anybody in the D tier? If there was anybody that we have on here, he might be one of the people that end up there. Not saying he's a bad player. I mean,
just because ARs, it'd be like Lamar or Methods, probably.
Right.
Out of this list that we have currently. Again, that's why we're not, at least in my list, spoiler, I'm not going to have anybody in the D tier because there's so many other guys in the league that are just worse players overall. And in my head, if we were ranking all COD players, they would actually be near the top of the C tier, probably. If not, maybe fringe B tier.
For sure. So I'm comfortable with C tier with Methods. I think him and Accuracy are on a somewhat level playing field in regards to skill.
Yeah, for sure. And OpTic had him in the B tier with Apathy, Zuma, and Lamar. So a little bit of a difference there, I guess. Now moving on, let's go on to another interesting one here, Octane, and see where he is. What do you think about Octane? Because they actually put him in the A tier, which I thought was a little bit surprising considering how good he's been in the past, 2, 3 years, 4 years in Call of Duty. And they had him in the A tier again with Crim, Clay, and Attach.
Right. So, I mean, does that seem right? Octane, Crim, and Clay all in the same tier?
No.
In my opinion, Octane seems a little bit a step above those 2 players in regards to just individual skill only.
Well,
he seems to be, and his past is just
right. As a purely talented player, Octane has been insane. Obviously, it comes down to how much do you value Seattle just getting bodied last year overall on the year versus his individual talent in this season. Obviously, in that video, Formal talked about how that he didn't think Octane was currently an A level player, and they want to put him in the B and all that. So OpTic almost put him in the B category, below Crim and Clay.
There was that big debate, especially in Modern Warfare, where everyone was really, really hyping up Octane about how good he is and how nobody helps Octane. But then I think Crimsix went out and was like, all he does is he just plays for kills the whole time. He doesn't really play the OBJ. He just plays for kills and baits his teammates. Which, do we call that an individually skilled player? If so, can anybody can do that. So how much of that is affecting people's perception of him? But I will say, World War II,
the pros,
he was so good.
And obviously the pros think that that's a big time detriment to a team, and that he actually might be the reason why the team's not playing well, which is interesting because I don't know. I don't necessarily get that vibe. I think if you put him on Atlanta Faze, he's going to be insane. I mean, that's just inevitable, I feel like. But with the team that he currently has, maybe his playstyle just doesn't work as well, and that's been the issue for him, at least in my opinion. I'm okay with putting him in the A tier here, but honestly, I wouldn't mind putting him in the S tier, but A tier probably makes the most sense right now.
I can go with A tier for Octane, yes.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Again, we're gonna do all of the retired pros at the end in their own little conversation, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. The way that they did it, I mean, I get it's for the sake of content, mixing them in there, but like they didn't have any real solid plan going in. It created for just pure chaos, which was wild. So, okay, let's talk about, we got 3 players left here. Let's talk about Zuma. Where do you got Zuma? They had him in, again, the B tier with methods, apathy, and accuracy.
Well, the weird thing is, I mean, I pretty much put Zuma and Attach always hand in hand. They're usually hand in hand in teams, you know, except for this year. And I feel like even as players, they are similar levels of individual talent, different in their own ways, but I think talent-wise, they're almost the same. In my opinion, I think Zuma and B, I could see Zuma in B tier. But
Yeah,
again, the potential to really explode, just like Attach has a potential to really explode.
Well, I agree. Attach is like the fringe, the top of B into A. I would say Zuma's kind of like the middle, the top middle, you know, somewhere in there of the B tier. But I also agree. I think he's in the B tier for sure with Crim and Attach right now as well. So I just think overall, like, you know, in their careers, Attach has been more of either like a support SMG, sometimes a Slayer. Zuma's played like, again, he's known for his flanking, his ability to play entry into hill when he needs to be played very fast up the pace. So those are a little bit different style players like that in that way. So, all right, we got 2 players left, Clay and Scump. Let's go with Clay here. I mean, dude, OpTic was bodying Clay. Thoughts on that, dude? That's your boy.
I know, Clay is my boy. I love Clay. I feel like, again, I still feel like Clay does not get the credit he deserves. And I'm not sure why. Maybe there's personality clashes. People just don't like the personality that he brings to a team, maybe. But I feel like, and from the scrims I've been watching in Cold War, he has been killing it. I feel like he's been really good, like a good player individually for his team. Even on Dallas Empire, I feel like he was doing better than Crimsix was, except for like maybe towards the end of the champs, which I think Placer was the better player than Crimsix, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, again, the tough thing is like, does that put him up a tier? And like when we were sitting with like Zuma, Attach, and Crim currently in the B tier, because
I mean, if you had Octane in the A tier, I don't think Clay is another Octane. B tier makes sense.
Dude, OpTic, like they wanted to put him a whole tier lower than Crim. They wanted to put him like what in the C tier?
And that's crazy.
In the B tier, I guess they had Crim in the A tier. They wanted to either put him in the B. Some of them mentioned C with Clay. So
I think
that was
Envoy
pretty
and Dashy
insane.
mentioned C, but like that just does not make sense to me. I think he was playing better than Crimsix was.
Why would Envoy and Dashy think Clay is in the C tier right now? I mean, like, if they put Crim in A, it means they must not think that Crim's actually an A player.
Well, here's the thing. Crim is it's hard to go trash on Crim, especially because he's, you know, one of the most winningest players, and it's Crimsix. He was former OpTic, so like they're pretty much giving gimmies to former OpTic people, you know, minus Killa. So I think that C is too low for Clay. If anything, he's on par with Crim, if not better than Crim, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a like legit debate. Of course, Crim was playing off of his position last year, not the ideal spot for him last year. And Crim like took a little bit tougher role than Clay had on Empire. So that's the biggest question is like, you know, how will Clay versus Crim play this year now that they're playing basically the same role? So I think that'll be a really fun thing to watch. And we get to watch them play against each other in the kickoff event. So hopefully that'll be a fun time. So now we got our final player here of the current players, Scump. And they put Scump in the S tier alongside Arcitys. But like, dude, I mean, Scump himself literally said I should be an A. So
I agree with Scump on that.
He's definitely not in the S tier.
Should be an A. I think there's better subs out there than Scump is. Scump did show up at champs like he always does, but the regular season he was A tier Scump, even bridging on B tier sometimes. But I think A tier is a pretty standard place for him.
I agree. I mean, I've done my top 20 and my top 15 videos the past like 2-3 months. And like, I always had Scump between like 13 and 20, like right in there somewhere. So that would put him in the A tier here, but like, you know, the middle slash maybe back half of the A tier. And I think he's, again, a really valuable player. And we've seen what he can do at champs. I mean, when the pressure's on, when things matter, when he needs to put on a show, he has and he does. And so the question is, you know, can he keep that consistent? And like online, specifically this year at the beginning of Cold War, we don't know when we're going to get a LAN event next. Can Scump keep it up? That's the question mark. But I think so far, he's looked pretty good in scrims. I don't think there's really a reason to expect that he won't be a top 15, top 20 player at least heading into Black Ops Cold War. So, all right, there's our list right here. So for you guys who are, checking out the list, this is what we got right now. And we're going to go into the legends here. This is what OpTic had right there. And so some pretty big differences. Again, they didn't have any current player below the B level. The only players they had below the B level were JCap, Killa, and Rambo, where, we decided to tier it out a little bit farther down. Again, we have nobody in the D tier. So now we got the legend players left. Let's start off with the one that was most pissed on Twitter, Rambo. So he, in their list, ended up in the D tier, and Formal was trashing him like he went 0-10 in champs. He went 0-10 in champs. Like, I thought that was extremely unfair. I mean, I get it's for the content, but man, Rambo was so good before COD Goes.
A mastermind.
Yeah.
A master tactician.
So, like, in my head, Rambo is at least B tier. At least B tier.
When I was looking back, just thinking about Rambo and his career, he's like one of the COD fathers. He's always been sort of the brains of his teams. I don't think his play has been A tier or S tier, but he does have the brain, and it's not like he couldn't shoot back. And I think B tier sits about right with Rambo in his day. I can agree with that.
Envy got second at COD Champs in COD Ghosts. He was on that team. And that was his last real event he played. And even though Formal's he went 0-10, but dude, I mean, they finished second in that tournament. And you go back in BO2, he was competitive the whole way through. Obviously, he's known for dominating in Modern Warfare 3, where him and Merc and Rambo, and then at times Scump and BigTymer and everyone else were dominating during Modern Warfare 3. So I would say at least B, but maybe A. I mean, he had an insane stretch in Modern Warfare 3. And it's if you value the insane stretch in Modern Warfare 3 that was played online, his longevity wasn't there compared to some of the other guys. And so that's why he's got to go there. So next up, Karma. His longevity, his dominance all the way through. He's obviously an S tier player. 3-time rings. I don't think there's very much debate there. I
mean, even he comes back to cold. Karma's thing is, if he cares, he is a god.
He's good.
If he doesn't care, he's B tier. Right. So which is saying something. He doesn't even really care, and he's still better than a lot of the players. So I think an S tier player for sure when he wants to be.
For sure. And we've seen it in the past and how good he's been. He's incredible and definitely one of the GOATs of COD. So, all right, let's talk Killa. Killa, oh my word. And again, he was another one that ended up in the D tier for their list. This is where I didn't understand how they were ranking these guys at all. I mean, in Legends of COD history list, Rambo and Killa are not in the D tier. There's no way. And if you look at them in their times, there's just no chance. I mean, I'm okay with putting Killa at least in the C tier. I think B or C is about right for Killa.
I think so too. I'm okay with C. Black Ops 3 had Dream Team, they got second, I think, in an event, which was huge news, And I don't even know how big of a part he played in the Black Ops 2 championship. That Black Ops 2 championship, it was Parasite, Mercs, Killa, and Karma. And I don't think Killa was the reason they really won champs. If anything, those other three played a bigger part than him. So I'm comfortable. I think C for Killa for me, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is again, this is very similar to Rambo in that argument. Okay, he was dominant for basically 4 months in Black Ops 2. And then after that, they were really competitive and very good. But that's when complexity started taking over and then just rolled through basically all of Ghost as well. So besides Miracles and Karma and Paris on that team, that's a tough debate. So that's why I'll put him in C.
I mean, I think his team was dominant, and obviously he played a part in that team and that dynamic, but obviously he's on this winning team, so C tier, comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. So we got two left. We got JCap and Big T. And in those lists, Big T was S tier, JCap was C tier. Again, those made no sense. I mean, dude, in the history, let's talk JCap. In the history of COD, JCap is an S tier COD history player. I mean, he has been on so many successful teams through years and years of Call of Duty. I don't know how you don't say he's S tier.
And so how much do we take into account of Yeah, sure. He's really, really great in the beginning, but then he fell off, and it was just a slow decline down until he hit the bottom of the trash in Modern Warfare.
Right. I mean, he was, again, dominant in BO1, really, really good in BO2, very good in in COD Ghosts, and then he was still winning in AW, very competitive in AW, wins champs in AW with Denial, and then you head to Black Ops 3, and he's dominating with Envy. Then he goes to IW, dominating with Envy. Like, how is he not an S tier player?
But think of the team that was surrounding him, though. It's like another Killa sort of situation, too. Is like, those teammates were really, really good on those games. And, like, not saying JCap was bad by any means. He clearly played a part, and he was kind of the leader of that team. But individual skill-wise, if you replace his other teammates, he's not going to be able to pick up that slack that they that was taken away.
But at the same time, no pun intended with slack. But I agree to that, to that argument to an extent, because obviously like John and and Apathy at the time were like just slaying out and dominating, and you got Slasher and all those guys at the times, and you have Attach and Clay and AW or whatever it is. Like I totally understand that, but like either way, the winning aside, he has won in so many different games, and that's more than an A tier player. Winning in AW, winning in BO3, winning in IW, winning all the way back to Black Ops 1. So he was dominating on boots on the ground on advanced movement. He's S tier. I'm not budging on that one.
Accolades wise, yeah. If you're not budging on S tier, I can go with A. Just accolades wise, I just don't think. I think his teammates and the community that was formed was really what made him excel. But we can go with S tier. But at the
same time, right. Again, Killa had a 4-month span of success. BigTymer had, JCap had like 6 years of like legit success.
Right.
So it's like, I think that's just the difference there. So our last guy here is BigTymer. And again, he had insane runs back in MW3, BO2, into Ghost, where he retired UMG Philadelphia, obviously, infamously. Thoughts on Big T? They put him in S tier, obviously, because he's an OpTic guy, OpTic legend. Mm-hmm. My initial instinct was either A or B.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I honestly, I like A for him, honestly, because I think for his time, he was a known name. Granted, he was on OpTic really, really early on. But he was a good player for his teams as well.
Oh, yeah,
he was one of the better players on his teams.
Dating back to like MW2.
And he won a lot. And if we're counting the wins and everything, I could put him in that A tier. He didn't have the longevity that JCap has, but he was, I think, the most winningest at one point.
Yeah, man. So I 100% agree with that. I'm with that at A. So that is our final ranking. So this is what we got right here, boys. This is what we're rocking with. Arcitys is the current player in S. We're going to go current here. So current Arcitys S, Octane, Scump A. Then we got Attach, Crim, Zuma, Clay inside B. And then we've got Accuracy, Apathy, and Methods inside C. So again, for you guys who just skipped here to the end, so screw you guys for skipping here to the end, but we rank those guys based off their current Black Ops Cold War talent. Obviously, if we were ranking these guys based off of, accolades and their COD champs, guys like Clay and Crim would be way higher up the list. Even like Attach and guys who have COD championships would be Apathy, would be way higher up the list. These are current, how they're playing in COD Cold War, based off similar to like what OpTic was doing. And again, this was OpTic's final ranking. So if you guys look in here, this was OpTic's final ranking and versus our final ranking. Again, I feel like ours, at least in my opinion, ours is significantly more realistic to how these guys would actually play out inside of a tier rankings list if they said exactly what they were thinking at all times. Because, I mean, the only thing that would be different is that they were obviously way, honestly, lower on Clay than we ever would have been.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. I would love to hear their actual honest thoughts on that if they would ever be willing to give it out. But any final thoughts here, Rex, on the video before we close it up?
I think Clay does not get enough credit. He deserves more credit. He's an all-star player. He's always been so good for his teams, and you can watch his gameplay. He just wins gunfights that he should not be winning, but he does anyways because he's that good. And I don't know why he doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
Yeah, no, that's realistic. So I guess last thing is, where would Illy go on this list?
S. S. Illy is S tier, dude. Illy will be MVP of Cold War. I promise you, dude. He is going to be elite. So good.
So if you guys enjoyed this video, first of all, you can catch a lot more of this type of conversation on the Best of 3 Call of Duty Esports podcast, which uploads now every Tuesday, which I know has been a little inconsistent the past week or so, but every Tuesday at 5 p.m. it goes live. So be there, check it out, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube on the channel right here. And again, go follow Rex Shady Nero. We're doing a giveaway for the podcast, and you got to go check out the last episode of the podcast, or go check out my Twitter, Salvation Elite, or the Best of 3 Pod, Best of 3, number 3 Pod on Twitter to check the giveaway for CDL merch, something like this, the Dallas Championship hoodie, and you can win that. So link is down in the description for those things. So go check that out, and hit it up on Twitter and everything else. So if you guys enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy Salvation Elite. To my right is Rex Shady Nero, or my left, I guess, on the screen. And guys, we will see you next time. We out.